Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. It's better off if you don't ask any questions about this, huh? So it's no secret that games and gamers are constantly trying to get people to take them seriously. But for some reason, it seems like there's a lot of resistance towards that from the mainstream. So I was thinking about this for a while, and I realized that, there is one thing that games have in common with all other sorts of media that people are familiar with. And it's that they're rated on a similar scale. It's always like out of 5, or out of 10, or out of 100. It's stars, stuff like that. This is how films are rated. This is how albums are rated. But the thing is, as I'm sure you're aware, games have a lot of issues with their ratings. Even though the scale goes from 0 to 10, there's always a lot more weight on the higher side for some reason. And there's all sorts of biases that come with reviewing games, and sometimes sketchy business practices can make their way into the score for a game. So all in all, it's just not being done right. If nobody's taking the role and responsibility of assigning these sorts of scores to games seriously, then why should anybody take them seriously? I mean, we live in a world where Imagine Babies for the Nintendo DS can get a 7.7 out of 10, but The Last Guardian gets a 7 out of 10. That implies that if you've got the two games lined up, one and the other, and you're trying to make a decision what you should buy, you're gonna pick Imagine Babies because, it has a higher score. It should be a higher quality game. It should be a better game, but it's not. That's not how it works. The rating system is complete trash. The numbers don't matter. None of this crap matters at all, and that bugged me a lot. There should be a better way to review and to score games, and that's what we're here for today, and that's basically the best intro I can come up with. So without further ado, ow. God dang it. See you later. So, as you can probably tell from the title, this video isn't focusing on a specific game. We're going to talk about a subject for once. So, one of my biggest issues with modern gaming actually has nothing to do with games themselves. Instead, it has to do with how they're rated. I've mentioned before how I hate when reviewers split games up into categories. You've seen it, and you've winced as soon as they pull it up. Some people will break a game's content down into specific independent categories like story, music, gameplay, graphics. It's no. The issue with this is that a game's content isn't delivered to the player in separate pieces. These parts are not independent of each other. You don't read the story, then listen to the music for a bit, then interact with some plain 3D objects on screen, and then finally take a look at the texture files. No! All of this is presented to you at once. Games are a very complex form of entertainment, and it takes a lot of skill and effort to properly review them. The designers didn't intend for their product's features to be experienced in a separate, independent fashion, and the user who will play the game won't experience them in that way either. So reviewing a game by cutting it up like that isn't just completely valueless to everyone, but it's also disrespectful to the medium. I mean, would you review music like this? Would you cut up every song and review every instrument individually? No. I really don't even know how this awful trend started. I have a feeling it might have come from like the early days of the electric playground, but this is 2016 now. It's time to step it up. It's like when you go out to eat, right? When you order a dish, all of the ingredients are placed in a specific way so that you, the visitor, experience the experience that the chef wants you to have. If you were reviewing a burger, you wouldn't take every piece apart and taste them all on their own to review it, because if someone actually read that review, they would know right off the bat that your opinion is not indicative of the experience that they would have if they went to the restaurant and ate the burger properly, as it was intended to be tasted. Here we go, 2 seconds in, we're already off topic and talking about cheeseburgers. Now, there's an important point I have to make so that I stop sounding like an elitist or something. Some of you may already know this, but I don't consider myself a reviewer. I think the bucket you'd have to throw me and a lot of other people into would be labeled critics. A review's ultimate goal is to help a consumer decide whether or not they should make a purchase. A review highlights the positives and negatives of a game and may compare it to other games, giving a reader or viewer an idea as to whether or not they'd be interested in it. A critique, on the other hand, is more analysis-based. It's about delving deep into those features of a game that deserve a deeper inspection to figure out why they succeed or why they fail. For me, personally, it's always been about learning something. In every one of my videos, I try to discover something new about some aspect of the game in question or of game development itself, often using topics from my classrooms as inspiration. I don't care whether or not you want to buy a game after I've talked to you about it. To me, it's all about teaching you something. If you leave my video without learning something that changes your perception of the media you enjoy, I've failed. And if I can't cover an interesting topic through a game, I won't talk about the game. That's why my library is a little bit all over the place. But I've gotten a lot of comments recently from people telling me that they enjoy that, so that's what it's going to be. That's going to continue. That's not going to change. So if I'm not a reviewer, why am I making a video about reviews? Well, simple. I'm a stakeholder of the game review system, as is likely you are too. You and I, we're both consumers of video games. And when a new game comes out, I read reviews. And you know what really annoys me about reviews, even more than splitting up a game into bits like that? Ratings. Game ratings are numerical scores that reviewers give to games and serve as a quick way for readers to get a sense of what they're walking into. Like other media, typically these scores appear as natural numbers ranging from 0 to 10 or 0 to 100. These scores are pretty easy to use and understand. Just like you get a 50% or 60% for performing mediocrely in English class, a typical average game will get a score of, you know, a 9.3. A 9.3 out of 10. This is Call of Duty Black Ops 2. This is the most average game I can think of. I mean, sure, yes, it's functional, but it's not amazing. It's a sequel nobody really wanted. It doesn't really innovate much. Yeah, it was okay, but it was just another throwaway game. A 93%, you get that in school if you're on the Dean's list. Like, that's close to perfection. Nobody's gonna see Call of Duty Black Ops 2 appear on any lists of the all-time best games. But with a score of 9.3, you should expect it to. You can even see the community score right under it is much more realistic. Yo, how did this happen? Now we're presented with a problem. Game ratings are completely broken. Games that are pretty bad get 60s to 70s. Games that are average get 80s to 90s. And masterpieces blast straight up to 100. You might as well divide these numbers by 2 and put them over 50 because the scale is totally imbalanced. So the point of this video is that I've come up with a solution that I think solves these problems, and yes, it's based on stuff I've learned from school. This time from a software project management course, so that's new at least. I swear, no knowledge is useless. You never know where you'll be able to apply something. But anyways, before I can present to you my solution, we have to explore what I think are the two main reasons that the current rating system is broken so that you can understand how my proposal addresses these issues. Firstly, the type of the metric itself doesn't make sense. So when it comes to collecting data, we use the concept of scale types. Scale types are, as their name suggests, different types of measures. There are 5 in total: nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio, and absolute, or NOIRA. So when you're measuring something, no matter what it is, your measurement falls under one of these categories. What's really interesting too is that scale types further down NOIRA can have all of the same operations done on them as those before them. The idea is that nominal is the least complex scale type. It's literally just plain meaningless numbers, like numbers on a jersey or something. Doing math on that doesn't result in any meaningful values. And then obviously absolute is the most complex, being able to have all sorts of arithmetic applied to it. I know this is a lot, so let me give you a classical example to show you what the differences between scale types really look like. The ratio scale type is what we use when we measure or describe distance. This is because there's a concept of a zero distance, of no distance. Because of this, the operations we can do on measurements of type distance include comparison, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. 20 kilometers is greater than 5 kilometers. 20 kilometers plus 5 kilometers equals 25 kilometers. 25 kilometers equals 4 times 5 kilometers. Now, if we drop down a level to the interval scale, the only difference is that the concept of a zero doesn't actually exist. For example, the Celsius scale for temperature. Yeah, there is such a thing as 0 degrees Celsius, but it's just the point at which water freezes. It doesn't actually represent a total lack of temperature. At 0 Celsius, particles are still moving around and the actual temperature is not 0. So on this scale type, we can perform such operations as comparison, addition, and subtraction, but that's it. It's interval based. Say our intervals are 5. 5 Celsius plus 5 Celsius plus 5 Celsius is 3 intervals, making it 15 Celsius. Think of it as like spinning a dial on a thermostat. 15 is 2 intervals away from 5. So 15 is greater than 5, but because there's no true zero, you can't tell by how much. It's incorrect to say that 15 Celsius is 3 times hotter than 5 Celsius, because this is the interval scale type and that's just not true. Anyways, I hope that paints a better picture of these scale types and the relationships between them. So, what's the point? Well, these game ratings seem to be presented as though they were in the ratio scale type, the same one we used for distance. The scale has a clearly defined zero and appears as a number. Numbers, or quantitative metrics, should only be used when there's a reason. You know, when we want to be able to do math on them, or calculate the average or something. Add things together, compare them numerically, you know, all that. So what if I take these measurements right here and say, hey, Resident Evil 4 is 8 units greater than Resident Evil 5. Or Resident Evil 4 is 1.9 times greater than SpongeBob Hero Pants. Or even the average of all Resident Evil game ratings is 90%. Do any of those statements hold any meaning whatsoever? No. They mean nothing. And not just because the rating scores are bogus, you know, the people just assign a random number to it, but also because there are no units for these measurements. When you represent something by a number, it's because there is something you were able to measure or count. Yes, there are things in games that can be measured like this. For example, the number of enemies that can be displayed on screen, the CPU performance while running the game, or the freaking width and height of the box that the game comes in. These are all things that you can measure if you wanted. But are these things actually considered to get the score? No, of course not, because they have nothing to do with it. The score isn't the return of some crazy function that takes in all these different measurable things and then spits out a number. No, this instead is supposed to be a measure of quality. So my question to you is, why is a product's quality being presented to us quantitatively rather than qualitatively? But anyways, now let's get into the second reason that the ratings are bad. So picture this. A new game came out, it's Zelda or something. You've been waiting for this for a long time and it's finally here. You're ready to go on this crazy adventure and spend hours and hours in this fantastical world. So you plop it in and you play, and you play, and you play, and you don't stop. You keep at it and you play all the way through in 1 or 2 sittings. And then once it's done, you never go back. That sounds kind of weird, huh? Most people don't play games like that. You know who does though? A reviewer. To a reviewer, a game isn't a fun escape, a piece of entertainment. It's part of their job. It's the longest, most tedious part of the review process. And here's something important to take note of. When you're analyzing the game, you're really focusing on the game itself, looking into all of its mechanics and discussing everything. So it doesn't really matter what your process looks like for completing a project like that, because you're committing yourself to put a lot more thought into it than just during the playthrough. But a review's goal is to help you decide what to do when a new game comes out. And so in a way, the review subject is less the game and more the experience that you can have with that game. When I read a review, I see more value in those sections where the reviewer expresses things in terms of the sorts of things that you'll do. You know, things like, yeah, some parts of the game are pretty challenging, but if you're familiar with other games of this genre, you'll have a good time. That sort of line isn't there to sell you on the game, it's there to sell you on the experience. And that's good. The issue is that to review an experience, you actually have to have that experience. The fact that reviewers play games in both a way that they were never intended to be played and a way that the users who actually read their reviews are never going to play themselves means that the review is kind of a failure. It's not just a problem that long games are being done in a single sitting. Sometimes games that are fundamentally impossible to review in a couple of sittings are reviewed just a couple of days after launch in a couple of sittings. How many times have you watched or read a review for an online multiplayer game that came out on the same day as the game? How many times have you heard someone conclude with something along the lines of, yeah, so overall the game is pretty good, but until more players start getting into the online mode, we won't have a full idea. But, you know, we'll keep an eye out. And then obviously they never have a follow-up video or review or anything. That triggers me to no end. Like, why? Why did you even make this review if you couldn't properly review it? If you can't actually provide a complete opinion on the game right now, why make the review right now? Why release the review right now? Why not wait and make a proper review when you can? And for now, if you really want to, make like a first impression sort of video. And then eventually follow up with a full review. Well, it's obviously because those clicks you get for having a review come out on release day, well, those are a lot of clicks. In case you didn't get that right there, what I was expressing, that frustration, a lot of that came from Splatoon. Because as you may know, if you watched the Splatoon video, back when I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to get it, I was reading a lot of reviews for the game. And what really bothered me was that a lot of the reviews, well, first of all, they did exactly that. They would say, yeah, the game's really fun, and they would make like jokes and stuff. I'm not going to mention any names, but a couple of pretty popular YouTubers made some videos on it, and it just kind of, it really triggered me a lot, because it was like, they were there and they were just making gags about the game, and then there was no actual content. You know, if your video was called Splatoon Review, you better freaking review it. And if you can't, don't make the video. That's why my Splatoon video, which is technically not a review, I called it a retrospective, and I'll stand by that. That video came out after the final Splatfest, so all of the game's content was out, and then I talked about it. But that's because I was doing a retrospective. A review is there to sell it to you. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of these reviews that I was reading and watching had no content in them, and I kept having to dig further and further to find videos that actually talked about, like, I didn't know about the planned future content and all that stuff. I had to watch these really obscure reviews to find out about that, because the big guys weren't mentioning it. They were just there getting those freaking clicks. That's all they cared about. Honestly, just the whole hype around Splatoon and all those videos caused me to unsubscribe from quite a few people. It was just kind of like a shock to see how unprofessional people could be. That sounds really freaking jerkish coming from me, but when someone says, yeah, it's great, I'm having a lot of fun with it, I'll make a video, another video about it later, and then they never make another video about it, well, that's because the second video won't get as many clicks, because who cares about Splatoon anymore, you know? It really bothered me so deeply. Anyways, I'm gonna just... And of course, there's also the issue that sometimes games are reviewed as special events hosted by the game companies. Oh yeah, fly me in, pay for my hotel, pay for my meals, take me out to nice restaurants, sit me in your office and let me play your game with all of the developers around watching me. My review will not be biased at all. Freaking clicks! Make the world go round!
Very good.
But I'm not here to comment on that, I'm here to talk about the reviews and ratings themselves. So my point is that on top of using an inappropriate scale type, these reviewers' ratings don't actually represent the quality of the game, but the quality of the experience. An experience that they fail to actually have themselves. So not only is the metric broken, but it doesn't even measure the right thing. What the flying Alright, so our problem is defined. Game reviews cover the wrong subject and game ratings are in the wrong scale type. What does a solution to this look like? Well, first let's cut to our first compromise. Yeah, those clicks, I get it, they're worth a lot. And no matter how well I argue that this scheme makes more sense for game reviews, unless it makes money, it'll never catch on. So even though the reviewer's experience can't be changed, they're going to be playing it in one shot, I think that the solution will, to a certain degree, help decouple the reviewer's opinion of a game from the way that they played it, by forcing them to consider the way that they normally play games, the way that their audience will play the games. Anyways, finally, what is this oh so hyped solution? Well, it's pretty simple, really. I think one way to fix the game rating system is to relativize it. Game ratings are currently at the ratio scale type. You take it down one more, you get to the interval scale type. You take it down one more, you're at the ordinal scale type. That's where I think we need to be. Here, the only operations we have available are comparisons. This scale, as its name implies, is order-based, and it works the best for qualitative metrics. You ever have to fill out one of those surveys where, your options are like highly dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, highly satisfied? That's the ordinal scale type. We can make statements like satisfied is greater than neutral, but we can't say anything about the actual value of either of these. There's no numerical value for satisfaction, it's just order. So what I'm suggesting is that instead of assigning arbitrary number scores to games, we rank them relative to each other. Now you might be thinking that trying to throw all these games into one big conga line ordered by quality is dumb and might take a lot of effort and might be a little bit biased. And that's absolutely correct, and that's why there's another part to this. So let's say we have one rating scale for each genre of game. Let's take a look at first-person shooters. Now let me just familiarize you quickly with a project management concept. Something you might have heard of or even participated in if you've ever been part of a project team, especially a software project, is planning poker. When a project is being set up, various tasks are isolated. Estimating things such as cost and duration of a project is very important, but unfortunately tasks are kind of similar to video games. You can't always assign a direct cost to them, and you can't always tell how long they'll take. So what project teams do with their tasks, like I'm suggesting we do with game ratings, is use an ordinal scale. Instead of trying to come up with a realistic number for each task, they order them in terms of complexity. But how do you begin ordering tasks? Well, the first step is the most critical, and it goes like this. The whole team sits down and looks at all of the tasks, and they all together agree upon which one is the average task. I'll give you an example. In my course, they actually gave us a really cool workshop to explain how these relative scales work. And if you're on the Discord server, this might be a little bit familiar to you. Our project, rather than a piece of software, was like some sort of Lego scene. We had to build houses, buildings, cars, people, animals, all sorts of things of varying complexity. So what we did was we looked at all of the structures and agreed that, this medium-sized car was probably the average build. Then what we did was take each and every other model and ordered them based on the average. The tree, yeah, that's easier than the car. The big house, that's harder than the car. Oh, a cow, well, that's easier than the car, but harder than the tree, so I guess it goes between. So now a seemingly difficult ordering task becomes a really simple binary search. The ordering kind of builds itself. So back to our scale for first-person shooters. All we have to do is pick out the single most average FPS game and then we can begin ordering. But hold on, how do we compare games? I mean, Perfect Dark was an incredible game for its time, so is it fair to put it under something like the new Doom just because the new Doom is more technologically advanced? No, it's not fair to do that because the things that Doom does now were technically infeasible back then. So what I'm suggesting is that we make some concessions when it comes to the comparisons. One of the things I suggest we consider is the date of a game's release. Sure, maybe reloading animations for guns are a standard thing throughout all games now, but back then they weren't. So being one of the first games to innovate and push a new standard forward should be rewarded on the quality scale. Meanwhile, games that kind of just go with the flow, truly average games that should have always been receiving average grades of 50%, those will wind up lumped together around the middle. And of course, broken, unfinished, or non-functional games will appear towards the lower end. On top of making more sense and being more accurate and effective demonstrations of scale, it's also more meaningful to a consumer. I mean, what gives you a better understanding of a game? Pikmin 3 gets an 8 out of 10, or Pikmin 3 is better than Pikmin 1, but not as good as Pikmin 2. That number score brings so many questions with it, but placing that game between its sequel and its predecessor makes it pretty clear how good it is. Now, one of the issues is that performing the rating process is a little bit more complicated to start off. Before reviewing a game, you have to have established some sort of baseline. You have to get as many people as possible, throw down a couple of games, and start ordering them, start putting them around, start throwing them onto the scale. And then when a new game comes up, it's pretty easy to find its appropriate place along that scale. Obviously, the more games you already have reviewed, the easier it is to find that right spot. It's also really fun though, and turning rating into a group activity helps alleviate a lot of the personal bias. Some of you may have actually experienced that firsthand. A while back on the Discord server, I got a couple of people together, and after doing a quick exercise with Legos to show everybody how planning poker worked, we actually used this technique to rate every single game I've ever talked about in a video and, throw them down onto a scale. We first all together agreed that the most average game was probably Gex 2, and then we just kind of went from there. I was planning on trying to use some audio from that session in this video, but because it's a little bit long, instead what I did is I uploaded the entire thing onto my second channel, LambHoot, so if you're really interested in watching 2 hours of, a couple of us just chilling and just reviewing a bunch of games together, then you can go do that. Otherwise, you don't have to because it's really long, and that's about it.
I thought you liked this game.
Oh my goodness.
You know what?
I didn't expect that.
You know what?
Why though?
I do understand that we're a little bit biased, but that was my childhood right there.
Also, major shout out to everybody who participated in that. I tried to get all of you to give me whatever you wanted to put in the credits, but nobody responded to that. The only person I did credit, and I have to, I'll shout him out right now because it's the most prominent voice other than mine. I think it's a little bit more prominent than mine. Actually, fun story, this is gonna get a laugh at him. When I was editing the video, because I put some little visuals in it, I rendered a freaking 2-hour video, can you believe it? But when I was doing that, I was sifting through the audio trying to find the points where we switched games, and every single time it was this man, Papa MML, who was the one who always announced okay, now we're doing Resident Evil 4, okay, now we're doing Gex, okay, now we're doing Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay, moving on. So I don't remember anything about the Conduit at all. Okay, so now we're at what? Battalion Wars 1. So now Freddy Fish. Okay, Battalion Wars 2. Let's do it. Okay, I know what I'm giving Mario Kart 8. It's fun. So Last of Us. Last of Us? We're doing Last of Us. Battle for Bikini Bottom. That is easy choice. Okay, Resident Evil 4. Anyway, Pikmin 1. Resident Evil 5. Let's move on to Five Nights at Freddy's then. Chicken Run. God of War 3. I've not played Metabots, but you made me want to play it. Okay, Splatoon. So Metal Gear Solid 5. Okay.
So your voice guided me through the editing process, and I have to thank you for that.
Yo, subscribe to youtube.com/mml129 for more dank memes.
Not actually streaming it.
You're not gonna. You're not.
I'm gonna cut through it maybe for.
Yeah, I know you're totally gonna cut me out. It's fine. So you know what you should do is you should cut to me saying subscribe to www.youtube.com and then just dub over LambHoot.
use his LambHoot that he said this there, and no one will ever know.
And subscribe to youtube.com/LambHoot.
So if you guys have a minute, go check out MML's commentaries on YouTube. He has a recent video about Metallica that's pretty good. He does gaming related videos, but now he's starting to move into other things. He's doing music, and he did a really freaking good job. So shout out to him for guiding me through that video editing. That was not fun, but it became a little bit fun. And you know what? Just shout out to everybody on the Discord in general. It's been reported that you are all incredibly cool.
Can everyone scream Linguini, please?
Linguini!
Oh my god.
Linguini.
But back to the video. What's really interesting is that the more games you review, the easier and faster it becomes. Using planning poker to assign numbers to games isn't arbitrary anymore. You literally just execute a binary search to order the games. So say you're trying to fit Metabots into the list. Alright, so let's check out Gex. Is Metabots better or worse? Well, it's better, obviously. So ignore the bottom half and cut straight to the halfway point of the top half. That's probably somewhere around God of War 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Pikmin. Is Metabots better than those? Nah, that'd be pushing it. Oh, but wait, Resident Evil 5 is right below these, and Metabots should rank above that, so I guess this is exactly where it belongs. And since it's between a 40 and a 35, let's give it a 38, because it's on the higher end. It really was a pretty impressive game. Now that 38 we just gave Metabots, remember, it doesn't mean anything on its own. It's only meaningful within the context of the entire ordered collection of ratings. The 38 doesn't have any significance other than that it's larger than 35, and it's less than 40. And now that's a meaningful way to score games. Now, what I think is pretty good about this process is, as we just demonstrated, it fixes that first main problem with review scores, their meaninglessness. But it also does its best to fix that other problem, reviewers not experiencing the game as those they're writing for. So let's say a reviewer is given a copy of Metal Gear Solid 5 to review, and instead of writing a pretty bad opinion piece on it based on however they were feeling that particular evening, say they're not only forced to try to compare and place the game in an ordered list of other games, but they're forced to do it with a team. Yes, reviewers play games differently for reviews than they do for entertainment. So why not have them order it among other games that they have played purely leisurely? At the end of the day, playing a game as your job will never feel the way it should. But asking yourself to stop being so serious and try to imagine the game as something that isn't work, relate it to other games, I think that's a pretty decent approach. And hey, it's better than nothing. But doing it with a team is what's really important. If you come up with a problem, you have to prove to everyone else why you think the game's score should take a hit for it. And if you can't convince them, it shows you that you're nitpicking over something that doesn't actually matter at all. Similarly, if you think the game is great but everyone disagrees with you, it'll help you understand why. And not only will the game's qualitative score be more reflective of the quality of the game, but you as a professional reviewer will learn a lot more about yourself and about everyone else and about games. When you or I as consumers read or watch a review, we should be able to understand why the reviewer liked the game or not. Or dare I even bring it up, why they liked each feature or not. This sort of information will help give you a more informed opinion, and this sort of relative scale kind of captures that. It's at least a lot more expressive than a ratio type number. And well, that's it. That's my proposed solution to the problem that game ratings are currently having. I actually had this idea quite a while ago, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make a video about it, but then I started writing, and then we did the planning poker session on Discord, and it went surprisingly well. I didn't think it would go that well, and then after I realized how effective that was for ordering the games, and how, we were able to get rid of, some of my bias was removed, and I learned things about what you guys thought about games, and we, put them in the right scale. And I know a couple of you guys had the same issue with certain games that were your favorites that everybody else kind of disagreed with, and we kind of, pulled you down from the ledge. So just based on the success of that planning poker session, I kind of realized that my idea wasn't really full of crap, I guess. I mean, I don't know if it's the best solution. I'm not going to say that. I think it's better than what's currently being used now, but it's at least not full of crap. Now, when we did it, we put everything into a Google Doc, but what I'm going to be doing for this video and for the future is I'm going to be hosting the current updated list of all of the games that I've personally covered on my website. It'll be at LambHoot.com/gamescores. And my plan is, as I said in the Metal Gear Solid 5 video, what I plan to do with Discord is that we do voice chats every once in a while, but the plan is that every time I release a video, at some point after that, I will appear for a voice chat, and we'll try to get as many people as possible. And originally, it was just like to chill and talk about the game, but I think what we're going to do now is, after the video is released, I'll set up a Discord voice chat, everybody joins in, and then the first thing we'll do is we'll all participate together in a planning poker session, and we will try to place the most recently covered game that I talked about on that scale of rating. Because I'm not reviewing them, but I'll try my hand at rating them with everybody, because it's not me, we're all doing this together. So it's our list of game rating and scores that we've given to the games that I've covered, at least. Because, if I've covered the game, you've probably watched the video and you've learned a bit about the game. And of course, I know a lot of the people who watch my videos are also content creators themselves, so if you've made an in-depth review of a certain game and you'd like to see it appear on this list, send me the video, hit me up on Discord or Twitter or something, and if there's enough people in the server, we'll try to do a thing at any point, and we'll try to just place as many games as we can on this thing. And I think it'll be really interesting to try to maintain this list. Anyways, I don't have anything to put on this. Has this been here the whole time? Oh my god. El Yucateco. Oh, good. I'm going to use this in the end screen. Yeah, that's it. So that's the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked my proposal to fix game ratings. Tell me what you think down in the comments below about, anything you want to talk about. Basically it. I don't know if this video will ever come out. I'm recording it. Here we go. I finished recording it on November 23rd, and I guess we'll just see what happens. You'll see the upload date, and you'll see that it's like 2 years later. And yeah, that's it. Anyways, thank you, and goodbye! Hello, and welcome to the end screen. This is Hello and welcome to the end screen! Today's end screen is brought to you by El Yucateco! You get more habanero. Well, this one one isn't. It's the brown one. It's what the heck is this? It's sauce kutabilik. Sauce kutabilik. It's kutabilik sauce. It's extra. It's triple X hot. Can you see this? Can I freaking focus on that? Hey, triple X has got some little stuff. I don't know what this is. This one isn't from the Yucatan, I don't think, but it claims to be the hottest sauce, but I don't think it is. I still think that the red one is the hottest sauce, to be honest. Okay, those of you from the Discord. Okay, first of all, if you're hearing all this Discord stuff for the first time and you didn't listen to it last time, that's probably because you didn't watch the Metal Gear Solid 5 end screen. In that end screen, I mentioned the Discord that I made. If you want to be a part of it, there will be a link in this description. We have a pretty good time. Everybody's pretty active there. We talk about a lot of junk. God dang it. Okay, I was trying to find... Okay, so basically, you know what? Let me do this. Okay, so basically what happened was one day a couple of days ago, a while ago actually, what I did was I opened up Twitter. It was late at night. I should not have been awake. What I started doing, oh, this is worse, raw like that. So I started doing was I started tweeting at El Yucateco, and I was just sending them all this weird stuff. And I woke up in the morning with a DM from them, and it was like, what's your address? And I was like, oh my god. Basically I was like, asked like, yo, you want to be my official sponsor and all that stuff? And they're like, and they actually sent me a bunch of stuff. I asked the guy, he said I'm not allowed to call them my official sponsor, but I'm allowed to call them my bro. So you're hearing it in this video first. Well, this is the first video I've made since this happened, but your boy the Hoot is now official bros with El Yucateca. I even put it in my Twitter profile thing. They sent me a bunch of stuff. They sent me like a t-shirt, they sent me sunglasses. I don't have everything right now, but what I do have, this is the only thing I have as evidence, it's like a bottle holder for El Yucateca. And my favorite part is that I've been mispronouncing their name for a very long time. I keep calling them El Yucateco. They are El Yucateco. I call them El Yucateca. God dang it, I'm a freaking idiot. Yeah, so shout out to them. Freaking amazing hot, for like no joke. I wouldn't, like this isn't like a, they didn't send me, this isn't like they're not paying me to tell you anything. Nobody's ever gonna pay me to tell you freaking anything, probably ever. But I've liked their hot sauce for a long time, and they just recently started their Twitter campaign a little bit more intensely, so I sent them some tweets and I got this. So it all goes to show you, you can do whatever you want if you just tweet at your favorite hot sauce company. Yeah, and really that's just it. Nothing significant has happened since the previous video. I guess I'm still in school. I'm wearing a hat now sometimes from time to time. It's winter, it's cold. That's basically it. Just trying to survive school. School's intense. I don't even know if I'm gonna ever edit this video. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and that's really it. I'll see you guys around on the Discord, I guess, and on Twitter, and on the rest of this stuff. Bye!